The loudest man in the room isn't the strongest. He's usually the most terrified. We often mistake verbal aggression for authority, falling victim to psychological traps set by men who use words to hide their own internal decay. If you've ever felt suddenly silenced or small, you weren't outsmarted, you were manipulated. Today we unmask the 7 phrases weak men use to fake power and how Stoic wisdom shatters their illusion. Ready to reclaim your status? Subscribe now. The first phrase you'll hear from a man desperate to assert control is, "Because I said so." This is the ultimate white flag of intellectual bankruptcy. When a man lacks the logic to support his position, he retreats into the fortress of unearned authority. He isn't seeking a solution, he is seeking submission. This phrase is a relic of a fragile ego that equates being right with being in charge. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." A man who relies on, "because I said so," has forgotten that leadership is a service, not a status. Imagine a young intern suggesting a more efficient way to process data, only to be shut down by a manager who snaps, "We do it this way because I said so." That manager isn't protecting the company. He's protecting his pride. He fears that if he acknowledges a better way, his power will evaporate. But a Stoic knows that truth is the only real authority. If someone challenges you with this phrase, realize they aren't strong, they are cornered. They are using their title as a shield because their arguments have no sword. Don't fight back with more ego. Respond with the calm clarity of reason. When you refuse to be rattled by their demand for blind obedience, you demonstrate a level of self-mastery they can't comprehend. You understand that their attempt to silence you is actually a loud confession of their own insecurity. By staying composed, you pull the rug out from under their performative dominance. You must remember that reason is the common property of all men. Anyone trying to bypass it is simply trying to bypass your humanity. They want a puppet, not a partner. In the eyes of Seneca, a man who commands without reason is like a pilot who steers a ship by closing his eyes. He may feel in control, but the crash is inevitable. When you hear this phrase, recognize the sound of a sinking ship. The second phrase used to gaslight and diminish others is, "Don't take it so personally." This is a classic deflection tool. It allows a person to be insulting, dismissive, or cruel, and then blame the victim for having a human reaction to it. It's a way of saying, "I have the right to hurt you, but you don't have the right to feel it." Epictetus, the great Stoic teacher who was born a slave, understood the power of perception better than anyone. He said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." However, he didn't mean you should let people walk all over you. He meant you should see their insults for what they are, reflections of their character, not yours. When a man tells you not to take something personally, he is trying to rewrite reality. He wants to act without consequences. Think of a friend who makes a joke about your biggest insecurity in front of a crowd, and when you don't laugh, he rolls his eyes and says, "Don't take it so personally." He is attempting to make your boundaries look like weaknesses. A Stoic recognizes this as a low-level manipulation. Instead of getting defensive, you can simply say, "I'm not taking it personally, I'm taking it as a data point about your character." This shifts the power back to you. You aren't being sensitive, you are being observant. You are choosing not to let their toxicity penetrate your inner citadel. By refusing to play the game of who can be the most indifferent, you maintain your dignity while they expose their lack of empathy. Remember, the goal of this phrase is to make you doubt your own judgment. They want you to believe that your sense of respect is an overreaction. But a mind trained in Stoicism knows that while we cannot control the words of others, we absolutely control which words we allow into our heart. If someone offers you a gift and you refuse to take it, to whom does the gift belong? It belongs to the giver. It is the same with insults. Let them keep their poison. The third phrase is the anthem of the stagnant. "That's just how I am." This is the lazy man's excuse for every toxic habit and character flaw he possesses. It is a refusal to grow, wrapped in a blanket of false authenticity. Seneca warned us that we are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality. But he also emphasized that the soul must be constantly under construction. To say "that's just how I am" is to claim that you are a finished product, a stone statue incapable of change. It is a way of demanding that the world accommodate your bad behavior rather than you doing the hard work of self-improvement. Consider a man who constantly loses his temper and screams at his family, only to shrug and say, "Well, I'm a hothead, that's just how I am." He isn't being real, he's being a coward. He's afraid of the effort it takes to change. Stoicism teaches us that our character is a choice we make every single morning. We are not bound by our past mistakes or our biological predispositions. We have the hegemonicon, the ruling faculty of the mind, to override our impulses. When you hear a man use this phrase to justify his rudeness or laziness, recognize that he has given up on himself. He is trying to make his stagnation look like keeping it real, but it is actually the ultimate form of self-betrayal. You, however, know that you are a work in progress, and your power lies in your ability to evolve. As the Stoics believed, the only thing we truly own is our will. To say you cannot change your behavior is to admit that you have lost your will, which is the most pathetic state a man can find himself in. Instead of accepting their excuse, see it as a warning sign. A man who refuses to improve himself will eventually try to stop you from improving yourself too. His authenticity is just a cage he's built for himself and anyone foolish enough to stay near him. The fourth phrase is a performative shield. I don't care what anyone thinks. While this might sound stoic on the surface, it's usually spoken by the person who cares the most. A man who truly doesn't care about external validation doesn't feel the need to announce it to the room. He simply lives his life according to his principles. This phrase is often used as a preemptive strike to protect a fragile ego from criticism. It's a way of saying, your opinion of me doesn't count, so don't even try to hold me accountable. There's a story of a local merchant who ignored every valid concern from his customers about the quality of his goods, constantly bragging that he didn't care about the haters. In reality, he was obsessed with his image, and his vocal apathy was just a way to shut out any feedback that might force him to look in the mirror. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others. The man who shouts that he doesn't care is usually the one most enslaved by the crowd's perception. A true Stoic values the common good and the feedback of wise people. They don't ignore criticism, they filter it through reason. When a man uses this phrase to shut down a conversation, he isn't showing strength, he's showing his fear of being judged. He is building a wall, not a bridge. True indifference to the opinions of others is a quiet internal state, not a loud external declaration. It is the ability to hear a harsh truth and say, if this is true, I must change. If it is false, it does not concern me. The man who shouts his apathy is merely trying to convince himself. His power is a house of cards, waiting for the first breeze of genuine accountability to knock it over. The fifth phrase used to invalidate others is, you're being too emotional. This is the weaponization of logic. It is a common tactic used by men who want to appear superior by painting their opponent as irrational. By labeling your feelings as too much, they effectively disqualify your perspective without ever having to address your points. They treat emotions like a defect rather than a natural human response. Stoicism is often misunderstood as the suppression of emotion, but that couldn't be further from the truth. The Stoics believed in apathia, not an absence of feeling, but a freedom from disturbing passions. They didn't tell people to be robots. They told them to be masters of their internal states. When someone tells you you're being too emotional, they are trying to seize the high ground. Imagine a woman expressing genuine frustration about being passed over for a promotion she earned, only for her boss to say, let's talk when you're less emotional. He isn't being logical. He's being dismissive. He's using a caricature of Stoicism to silence a legitimate grievance. A strong man understands that emotions provide valuable information. He doesn't fear them in himself or others. He knows that the most emotional person in the room is often the one trying the hardest to look cold and calculated. True power is the ability to stay calm and empathetic, recognizing that reason and feeling can coexist in a balanced mind. Musonius Rufus, a Stoic teacher, argued that virtue is for everyone, regardless of gender or temperament, and that true strength lies in how we process our feelings, not how we bury them. When someone tries to logic you out of your feelings, realize they are just trying to avoid a difficult conversation. They aren't more rational, they are just less brave. They lack the courage to deal with the messy reality of human connection, so they try to sanitize it with a label. The sixth phrase is the mask of the bully. I'm just being honest. This is almost always followed by something unnecessarily cruel. It's a way of repackaging malice as a virtue. The man who says this wants the credit for being truthful, without the responsibility of being kind. He uses honesty as a license to tear people down. But as Marcus Aurelius noted, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. He also taught that truth should always be paired with justice and kindness. If your honesty is designed to hurt rather than help, it isn't a virtue, it's a weapon. Think of a man who mocks his partner's appearance or a coworker's mistake and then smirks, saying, "Hey, I'm just being honest." He isn't a truth teller, he's an opportunist. He's looking for a way to feel powerful by making someone else feel small. A Stoic knows that words are actions, and actions must serve the common good. If you have to tell a hard truth, you do it with the goal of improvement, not destruction. You do it with gravity and care. When someone uses this phrase as a get-out-of-jail-free card for their toxicity, recognize the game they are playing. They are trying to make their lack of social grace look like a moral standard. You don't have to accept their honesty if it isn't rooted in virtue. True honesty is rare and precious, and it is always delivered with the intent to build up, even when it has to tear down a false belief first. A man who prides himself on brutal honesty usually enjoys the brutality more than the honesty. He is using the truth as a bludgeon, and a Stoic knows that a bludgeon is the tool of someone who has lost the ability to use his mind. The seventh and perhaps most telling phrase is, "You're lucky to have me." This is the ultimate statement of the insecure narcissist. It is designed to create a power imbalance by making the other person feel indebted or inferior. It's a way of saying, "My value is high and yours is low, so don't you dare challenge me." This phrase is the antithesis of Stoic humility. The Stoics believe that we are all part of a larger whole, and that our worth is found in our character, not in our supposed superiority over others. Seneca wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." A man who tells you you're lucky to have him is trying to bypass the need to actually be a good man by simply declaring himself one. Picture a man in a relationship who uses this phrase every time his partner brings up a valid concern. He is trying to create a fear of loss so he doesn't have to change his behavior. It's a desperate attempt to maintain a high market value because he knows deep down he isn't doing the work to deserve the people in his life. A truly powerful man doesn't need to remind you of his value. He demonstrates it through his actions, his loyalty, and his steady presence. He knows that luck has nothing to do with it. Only virtue does. As we close this exploration, remember that the words people choose are the windows into their souls. The 7 phrases we've discussed, from "because I said so" to "you're lucky to have me," are not signs of strength, but echoes of an empty vessel. A man who truly possesses power, in the Stoic sense, has no need to belittle, gaslight, or demand submission. His power is internal, and it is the inner citadel that no insult can breach and no ego can shake. By recognizing these phrases, you strip them of their influence over you. You see the scared small boy behind the booming voice. You can choose to respond not with anger, which only feeds their drama, but with the quiet, unshakable dignity of one who knows who they are. As you go forward, let your own speech be marked by the Stoic virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. Don't seek to feel powerful over others. Seek to be powerful over yourself. That is the only dominance that matters, and the only power that lasts. Thank you for walking this path of wisdom with us. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to reclaim their peace. Stay strong, stay virtuous, and we will see you in the next video.